In this video, I'm going to tell you all about working with handmade paper for your wedding invitations. Hi, I'm Laney. I'm an invitation designer and I teach other stationery designers how to make invitations and make money. If you're interested, we have a monthly membership platform for stationery designers only. You can check out the link in the description of this video. Okay, so let's talk handmade paper. What is handmade paper? A lot of people know it as the paper that has these like beautiful torn edges. Let's see if we can get a focus. Kind of the underside is showing the texture better of this paper. It is literally handmade. These torn edges are not actually torn. They are what's called deckled, and that is because they're formed from a mold and deckle during the handmade process. So they're made in this shape that is a little bit irregular. They're not cut down to a perfect rectangle. And most people love that. You can cut off the edges. I know some people do that, but it makes me really sad. Handmade paper comes in a lot of different kind of varieties. There's this one. If you look at the underside, you can really see a lot of that texture. Here is a piece that I actually made just testing things out for fun. You can see so much texture on there. It's really, really hard to write on. I am not a professional paper maker. Here is another version. This one is a little bit more standardized and has what's called a felt texture. So it's a little bit bumpy. It's kind of like watercolor paper, and the edges are a little bit more regimented than some of the others, like this one, for instance. And then let's see, I have this other one from a different brand. It's a little bit thinner and has some texture. Again, kind of like watercolor paper, but this one has more of that beautiful edge than this one that I showed you, which is a little bit more regimented. So it just kind of depends on the look you're going for. There's also different price points. This one is going to be the least expensive that I've showed you. This one's second least expensive. This one's most expensive of the ones that I've showed you, and it has kind of the most texture. It's the thickest. It's got these edges. So of course there is an upgrade price to get some of those beautiful features, but it's definitely worth it. There's two things about handmade paper that are a little bit weird and difficult to work with. The first is the sizing. So they don't always come in the exact same sizes. A lot of the ones I've showed you do come in more standard sizes. This is a 5x7. It fits in a normal 5x7 envelope. However, this one's also a light pink. It's hard to see it out here, but it is a light pink, and it comes in a few different colors. But the sizes aren't as standard, so you can't put this in a regular 5x7 envelope and expect it to fit nicely. So you either have to go with the handmade paper envelopes from the same brand, or find an envelope and kind of fudge it. You know, it doesn't have to fit exactly all the time. But that's a consideration to take into account when you are working with handmade paper, is that it's not always going to be those exact regimented sizes, and they might be encouraging you to buy the envelopes that match the paper, which come in the right sizes for them. The second thing is that it's kind of difficult to print on. These are two examples of digitally printed handmade paper, and I do this in-house. It's not something that a lot of commercial printers offer, because for a few reasons. Most commercial printers use laser printers like this one, and laser printers can burn handmade paper because they use a lot of heat. There's also a lot of loose fibers and things that can get into a laser printer and aren't great for it. So you're going to need to use an inkjet printer, which most commercial printers just don't have in their repertoire. So I print these on an inkjet printer at home. Second thing is that all of this deckling that makes it so beautiful makes it difficult to print, because it's not always going to feed exactly like a normal sheet of copy paper that's square on the bottom. So what you're gonna find is some of them might print a little crooked. Some of them may feed a little bit weird. You might have a couple jams potentially. And then all these pieces on the outside sometimes can get like little black marks or smudges from the printer. The good thing is it looks torn anyway, so if you need to just tear off a little piece, it's not the end of the world. No one's really gonna notice, so I always do that. Some people I know actually iron the paper to thin it out before putting it through their printer and say that they don't get any smudges that way. For me, there's not enough smudges that it would be worth it to iron every single sheet. I just prefer to tear it off if there's a little smudge. Otherwise, you can do letterpress or gold foil printing on handmade paper a lot easier than digital printing. However, these do come with a little bit of an upgrade cost. I have videos on both of those print methods if you want to check them out. If you use handmade paper for place cards, you're gonna want to use more of a dull nib or pen because there are natural fibers in this, and so it can be a little bit harder to write on, especially with really, really sharp nibs if you're a calligrapher. So I prefer, I use a dull nib anyway, which is the Browse Blue Pumpkin, and so it works pretty well on most handmade papers. You might also find handmade papers that don't really take ink very well at all because they aren't sized. Sizing is kind of a finish that you can put on papers. They usually mix it into the batch when they're hand making papers, or they apply it after the paper has dried. And if you're finding that your paper won't accept any ink, then that's probably a good indication that it's not sized correctly, and so it might not take ink. So when you're buying handmade paper, just make sure you ask them how it takes ink, you ask them if it's sized to take calligraphy ink, if that's something that you want to do. And if you're really interested, handmade paper can also include flower petals, glitter, colors, leaves, seeds actually that you can print. So I love handmade paper as a really sustainable option because it's usually made from recycled fibers. It's usually tree-free. So you can even create handmade paper that has seeds that you can plant an additional tree, which I think is really, really exciting. So if you're really into that eco-friendly imitation, which I have a video on other options for more sustainable imitations, but I think handmade paper is really gonna be the best option for that. There are even people who make custom handmade paper, so you can get it in a color that you want. You could get it made out of your old textbooks. You could get it made out of old paper that you have, or with specific seeds or flowers in it, that kind of thing. So if you are interested in doing something like custom, reach out to me. I have an awesome handmade paper maker that I can refer you to. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you'll check out some other wedding invitation videos while you're here on my channel. Let me know questions you have in the comments. And if you are a stationery designer, check out Stationery School. It's our monthly membership platform built just for you.